the Monster Mile, and the less popular, but still sufficient, White Lightning. Dover International Speedway is a place that has lived up to both of those nicknames over the years. It is a tough track that requires accuracy and bravery to turn an ultra-fast lap. The walls on the exits of both 2 and 4 are punishing, and the 1-2 combination of slapping the outside wall and then slamming the inside wall, either front stretch or back stretch, has caused chaos in races going back to the track's inception. Dover opened in 1969 as an asphalt 1-mile oval, and fittingly, with it being a race in the late 60s and early 70s, Richard Petty won that inaugural Cup race here. Dover hosted nearly all Cup races during those early years, before NASCAR started to bring over the Grand National Series as a companion event. By 1993, though, those mid-Atlantic seasons had taken its toll on the surface, and the decision was made to resurface the track. In a risky proposition, they chose to make it concrete, following the decision that Bristol had made 2 years prior. In 1994, the first races were held on that new surface, and the Dover we either love or hate came into being. In more modern times, the track has held a wider variety of races. IndyCar ran here in the late 90s, with more recently Whelen Modifieds, trucks, and ARCA all having made stops at Dover. And finally, yes, the 1-kilometer quarter-horse track inside the Speedway is still used to this day, with the casino on the backstretch. Now it's time to strap in and hope the monster doesn't bite.
Check, check. Test, test. All right. Apologies for some slight technical issues as the qualifying works its way through here at Dover. Chris, this has been one that I think we've been anticipating as we take a look at the race details here today. It is going to be 85 laps or 110 laps rather, that the drivers are going to be doing around here today. They have no spare truck if they get any sort of damage here in round 7. So if you wind up hitting the walls, which is easy to do here at Dover, you're likely to find yourself, unfortunately, having to duck into the pits for an unscheduled stop and maybe finding yourself laps down. And of course, they have a few bonus points, which they are going for right now. And up at the provisional pole, getting that pole position bonus point is Daniel Knight.
Yeah, a little bit surprising. Bradley Holly set the pace in practice earlier, Joe. And Daniel Knight comes out and basically just kind of sneaks away pole position so far. Obviously, still drivers out on track. Abner Acosta clocking in 3rd, Josh Conker 4th. So still a little bit of time yet for that pole position to switch hands.
Richard Regan, I kind of wondered if this would be the case. He takes pole by 1/1000th of a second on his first try, and I think he's slowing on his second lap, so he's happy with that. The reason we bring up Richard is even though he is not in the championship hunt, he has won every single race he showed up to this season, all 3 of them. He's looking for a 4th, and this would be his first back-to-back if he does so. He could be the real fly in the ointment in that championship battle between Holly and Conker.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more than one championship contender that rue the day when they see the 46 truck clock in for a session.
Looks like Nick Schwartz is now out there, is trying to get his lap time in. The 44 is one of only 4 drivers that have yet to set a time, but we've only got 10 seconds, so I don't know if this is going to count. Let's see. No, it does not. He must have brushed the wall. That means he is going to have to start from the back today. So that means that our grid is now set. So we're going to go through that starting order here for you in just a moment. As we mentioned just earlier, Richard Regan Jr. took the pole away from Daniel Knight in the late stages. Bradley Holly will start from 3rd, as Abner Acosta will be P4. Josh Conker in 5th. There's a lot of your major players typically in these races will win right there in the top 5. Doug Evans starts in 6th with Mark Kalin in 7th and Jim Westerfield in P8. Elliott White will start 9th, and Thomas Sink rounds out your top 10.
Strong qualifying performance for Barron Hilton, clocking in 11th overall. Colton Lane in 12th. 13th is going to be Austin Hunter, then Mike Richter completing row number 7. Row 8 is going to be Brett Adams and Adam Shane, followed by Josina and Charles Sumner in row 9. Rounding out your top 20 starters, Nicholas Hunter in 19th. Danny Cervantes closes out the top 20.
Last 3 to set a time was Patrick Cowgill in 21st, Adam Zemke in 22nd, and Stacy Hunter in 23rd. Those who will be starting at the back include Ferguson, Schwartz, Geyer, and Kulhanek. And from what I could tell, I need to double check, I don't think we had any EOL penalties, so these appear to be drivers that are electing to start at the back of their own volition. Let's go through our onboards as well for today. This is Patrick Cowgill that we're looking at, that we're going to be joining out there on the track. And then, of course, Bradley Holly, who frequently joins us. The 184 are going to be lining up on that second row.
Still has his lucky shirt on, too.
He loves to wear that. This is Austin Hunter now that we've got with us. He is starting well towards the back as he was not able to get a lap in late in the race. Then we have, who do we have up next here? Richard Regan Jr. also going to be joining us starting from the top spot. And Daniel Knight as well, another VR user that will be giving us a view. And I believe the last is going to be Danny Cervantes, who there we see ready to go for the evening. In fact, we're ready to go as well as the pace truck is heading through 3 and 4. Going to duck down into pit lane. And our pole sitter, Richard Regan Jr., is going to have control of the field. Waits patiently. He's checking them up for quite a while. Looking for this 4th victory. Green flag is out. It was a long wait for Richard Regan Jr. He gets a poor start over Daniel Knight, who's going to stay to his outside coming into the first couple corners, but that high line is not rubbered in. He immediately drops back.
Yeah, this track will take a little while before it rubbers in. This concrete surface really does get the rubber adhered to it a lot differently. So we're going to see these drivers struggle on the outside here in the early stages.
Getting pretty single file relatively quickly. Not a lot of side-by-side action down through the field. So it is Regan leading Knight, Hawley, Acosta, and Conquer for your top 5. Very little change off the line.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers were really lucky to be able to slot in the line so quick. As you can see, the field just felt single file most of the way back through. And we're probably going to see that a lot in the beginning of this race. Looks like we have somebody pulling down on the front straightaway, but Mark Kalin sets the mark early on, fastest lap for the 62 driver.
Yeah, that's a battle, I think, between Lane and Hilton, and there's also 2 behind them, Brett Adams and Austin Hunter. Austin having climbed up a little bit here. No, actually, he started in 13th, excuse me. Thinking of the other Hunter. Oh, is off the corner, drifting up high. Brett Adams nearly gets into the side of Baron Hilton. That's going to open the door for Austin Hunter. And yet more trucks are going to blow past that.
Yeah, if there's one spot I don't want to be in at this track, it's coming out of 2 or 4 with somebody to my inside, Joe.
Well, right now, nobody seems to have anyone to their inside as they once again go single file throughout the field. But Bradley Hawley bumps himself up in the second. He managed to get past Acosta, and he is now trailing behind Richard Regan Jr., trying to be the first this season to be able to deny him from a win at a race he's attended. Yeah,
the one constant that we've had this season is Richard Regan Jr. Every time he shows up, he heads to victory lane, but it looks like the 184 is going to give him a run for his money today.
He's already gotten to the inside. Hasn't completed the pass yet. Also side by side for 3rd behind them. Acosta the high side. Knight down low. And there's the completed pass for the lead. Hawley up front. If the 17 wants to slide up high, which he does, he's now finished it on the 5. And behind them, that looks like Mark Kalin actually making great progress. He's making the high lane work.
That's a bit surprising this early on, wondering if the drivers ahead of him may have had some kind of small issue as Kalin works to the outside of Josh Conker, thinks better of it, and he'll fall back in line now as we head off to turn 4.
Yeah, through 1 and 2, he actually was gaining quite a bit on that 54. Didn't quite work out for the long run. He is ahead of Doug Evans, who sits in 7th there with the black, white, and pink machine. Not a lot of changes, but certainly some exciting ones here at the start of this race. A few drivers deciding it's worth the risk trying to move their way forward.
Yeah, you got to wonder, too, there's probably a decent amount of drivers that want to try to save tires early on in this run. These concrete surfaces are not super tire-friendly, as we have, looks like an attempted pass at the lead, the 46 of Regan back on the 184 of Hawley.
Manages to get in front of him. He's got the desired bottom line. Hawley's not going to fight it too hard. He gets in behind. Yeah, I mean, talking about the surface here, it's pretty hot out there as well as we watch Regan leading ahead of Bradley Hawley, who gets very close. But look at that, 118 Fahrenheit on concrete of all things.
Yeah, that's very hot for a paved track in any way, shape, or form. But this concrete reacts much differently to the temperature swings than asphalt does. So it's a pretty sensitive surface. So that's going to make the grip levels even more tricky as we get into this race.
We are already past 10 laps into this event as now we take a look at Bradley Hawley. He slots back in, swapping back and forth a couple times already between his old rival. Don't forget about Daniel Knight back there. I wonder what that 17 has underneath him. Considering he was 1,000th off the pole, you got to think that he might be just kind of biding his time.
So was that a Joe Biden pun because we're in Delaware?
honestly didn't even think about that. Oh, and we got our first caution. I think Zemke. Yeah, it looks like Zemke, and I also see Patrick Cowgill slow. So let's see what started this. Looks like this starts into turn 3. I'm going to look for the replay here, and this does begin with a 57 from what I can tell on my screen. Looks like he's going to get a touch from Cowgill. Ooh, and it was a high-speed touch, which meant he lost control in a very bad place.
Yeah, it looked to me like Cowgill was looking to make a pass, and just maybe a late defense from Zemke, and unfortunately took out both drivers.
Well, we've got a chance. Why don't we take a glance at the driver points here and see how the situation is with that now 6 rounds into the season. Bradley Holly up ahead of Josh Conker by 10 points here up at the top of the standings. Elliott White only a single point back from him. And then you've got Brennan Chatley and Thomas Sink rounding out the top 5, all very tightly packed. We also have Teams Championship. How's that looking right now, Chris?
Well, the private label Team Hype squad was able to extend their lead after the victory for Richard Regan Jr. last weekend. The Whataback Overdrive team not too far back still, only 23 points. Then another 20-some-odd points back to Car Ramrod. Then a big gap back to the Whataback Back Row Racing team at this point, with West Coast Racing still just chilling out there in 5th spot. They've been hanging out there for a good chunk of the season and seem pretty comfortable in 5th spot, Joe.
As for the race in particular that we're running, let's also glance at the race details and what the drivers will be up against here today. As we mentioned, we are in round 7 that the drivers will be facing off in. And I think we're going to be going double file here with most of the drivers eager to get this one going. Once again, nobody really taking early stops except for Kulhanek and Schwartz, I see, have jumped in, and then Cowgill and Zemke naturally had to get some repairs.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I kind of would have thought somebody might throw a set of tires on here early. I mean, 15 laps into the race is a pretty good distance where we could start seeing some fall off, but well, I guess we'll wait and see what the pit strategy plays out to be.
All right, so we've seen that so far Regan and Hawley both are very interested in trying to lead and having that clear air in front of them, but not Daniel Knight. He's sat in 3rd ever since he got overtaken by Hawley in the very first few laps, and just hasn't been making the same sort of moves that we've seen from that front row. Admiral Costa sitting back in 4th still, has been in a couple tussles. What about Josh Conker, who still is in that championship fight with Bradley Hawley? Does he try to now make inroads and see if he can get closer? Green flag is out, and Richard Regan is off immediately this time, as opposed to the long wait he did before. Down into turn 1, top 4 single file. 5th place up for grabs, though. Conker and Kalen side by side.
Yeah, Josh Conker is going to want to play these opening laps of this restart pretty quietly, I think. With his situation in the championship, he really needs to make sure he stays there towards the end. And it looks like he is blinking a little bit. Had that problem a week ago as well. So he's going to want to make sure he keeps the truck in one piece if he wants to have a shot at the championship.
Looks like Doug Evans managed to take 7th away from Mark Kalin. And there you see those two on screen right now. Kalin in the green 62. But once again, drivers starting to settle in. It is a very, very fast track around here. We heard one of the drivers last week even describe it as a big Bristol.
And that's not too far off. It is basically just a longer Bristol, which makes for a lot of fun because these guys are going to basically be grinding it out, turning the wheel the whole time around. And you can see here just driving down the straightaway, Joe, there's no point where you're at ease at this track. You are constantly putting little inputs in the steering, trying to get it right. It's just not an easy track to drive.
I can tell you the times that I've attempted to race here, it's been extremely frustrating. As we're riding on board right now with, I think this is Kalen. He's got a little bit of a challenge from behind. Thomas Sink was taking a peek on him. And he's starting to back up. Something of a train, it does look like. As we hop off of him, the 27 is there, Colton Lane. I see the 35, the 23. This goes way back down the field.
Yeah, it looks like Kalen has definitely become a bottleneck point with a lot of really big-name drivers behind him. And just goes to show how difficult it is to pass here as Thomas Sink finally able to get by, that they rode like that for so long, Joe. This track is definitely not very user-friendly as far as passing goes.
Yeah, Sink takes 7th. This goes down to 19th with Cervantes at the tail of this group of cars, group of trucks here. Ooh, some of them getting awful close to the exit of 4, just trying to carry that speed through the banking. As we come back onto the backstretch once again, I think you're right. I think the bottleneck is indeed Kalen, because he's losing a little touch to Sink in front of him. Oh, we had a change for position as Conquer just overtook Acosta. That was for P4.
And that's just going on to be the exact type of race that Conquer needs. Lots of clean passing here. You see he just does a textbook Dover pass, gets a run off the corner, gets to the inside heading in, and drives off with the position.
So next on his list is going to be Daniel Knight, but it's about a half a second up the road. So he's got some work to do to get that one. Last time through, we saw about 13 laps before we got that first caution. Restarted on lap 16. Will we see them go another 13 laps out to, let's see, that would be lap 39, I believe, that they'd reach if they hit that again. We sometimes see that at tracks, Chris, where it's almost kind of tire limited. You expect the caution of about the same time each time.
Yeah, that is, it's almost something you can set your clock by at some of these tracks.
So far, so good. We've still got a few laps to go before we hit that mark, though. Actually, it would be lap 29 that we'll see that happen, not 39. I can do math, I promise. As we are watching a little shake of the head there from Bradley Holly. Not happy about something, but not too terribly upset. As we get both of our leaders, Regan on the left side in his VR, continuing to lead the way. They have gapped Knight by a whopping 1.1 seconds and just a handful of laps since this restart.
Yeah, they've jumped out to a really good advantage. One thing I do wonder, Daniel Knight, not known to be a driver that is good on saving his tires, so potentially Daniel Knight maybe ran off the good early and it's allowed those two to escape.
Kind of wonder if the same thing is happening with Abner Acosta. We see that with both the trucks and the Cup cars with that number 5 machine, because he not only lost a spot to Josh Conquer, but he's under quite a bit of pressure from the 41 of Doug Evans, who's been doing a good job ever since he got past Mark Kalen. Already has met the tailgate of Abner Acosta, but he's now got to get around him. Oh, and behind them, look at them pop out. That was, that looked like Elliott White and Nick Schwartz, who both synchronized past the drivers they were facing.
You always wonder, it looks like they planned that stuff, but I mean, obviously they can't because they're driving, but like synchronized swimmers, but a lot faster.
Just as pretty, though. And they come through. This is about the time we got the caution last time, but so far so good, and I'm not seeing anybody too terribly out of shape. So for some reason we've got Matthew Kulhanek down on pit lane. Not sure what has caused that. I tell you what, though, Nick Schwartz, remember, he was one of the ones that stopped in, restarted at the very back of the pack, and he is up to 7th. So these tires must be worth a heap of time.
I had a feeling they would be. That's honestly why it surprised me so much that hardly anybody came down pit road during that first caution. I mean, you can see he just passed Doug Evans like it was effortless And Doug Evans has been one of the faster trucks we've had all day. So obviously the tires are definitely worth something here. And a pretty good heads-up move by the 44.
Well, considering let's see, I'm pretty sure, he started way at the back because he didn't qualify. I'm thinking this was a strategy call from him, as in front of him, that is Abner Acosta going to take a spot back from the 54. But he had nothing to lose, really, whereas other drivers, especially up at the front, we got to remember, they only have 4 sets, Chris. I wonder if they're trying to think long-term, trying to save that in case we get a lot of late cautions.
That's a very fair point also. This track is really difficult to drive, as I've kind of hammered home a few times, and you can almost count on a caution to happen at some point. So maybe they're banking on another caution coming, and they just want to keep their tires saved in case they hit some hot and heavy at the end.
And now Evans overtook Schwartz, so has he hit the cliff with those tires? Has he abused them too much? Thomas Sink is going to look underneath him. Something has slowed up the 44, unless maybe we missed him clipping the wall somewhere.
Yeah, I was looking at the truck as we were looking back, and I think he may have gotten to the wall. Yeah, the hood right there, you can see it pushed up a little bit, Joe, so it looks like Schwartz has gotten into the wall.
Well, there was a fantastic run, potentially thrown away. Granted, he's still way farther up than he was before, so it's not the worst thing in the world, as long as it doesn't fall all the way to the very back of the field. Another little brush with the wall will allow Kalen to demote him yet one more.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a net gain for him here at this point, but I don't know if he finally hit the tire cliff, or maybe the track's just getting a little bit harder to drive, but Schwartz having some struggles here as we get later into that tire run.
I think the drivers are honestly heating up the track quite a bit as well, because I was looking during the caution, it went down to 110 Fahrenheit. It's back up to 117 once again, so it is certainly fluctuating.
Yeah, that's just another element of racing on a concrete track. It reflects a lot of light because it's lighter in color than asphalt, but man, is it temperamental. It gets heated up, and it's got all those expansion points that you can see cut into the track, and it just strict and expands a lot more than you see on asphalt. So it's a very reactive surface, and it's really difficult to drive.
I'm just notice a lot of trucks that are just rifling off these laps. It is quite a few that they've got to go to get to the checkers at 110. Schwartz, by the way, continues to plummet. He is already down to 11th.
Yeah, I wonder if he did maybe more damage than we expected when he got into the wall, or if perhaps he just reached the point where the tires are a little worn out. And maybe he's just falling towards the back, and we'll see.
Now, here's an interesting development as well. Richard Regan Jr. just overtook lap traffic in the form of Nick Hunter. And a few of the other trucks are also having to make their way past. You'll have more coming up. Adam Zemke, who we saw in that big accident, has managed to get it repaired and is going. So I wonder if that could affect this race as well.
It definitely could play a role, because as I mentioned, it's hard to pass here, and that can be just the same with lap traffic if you catch them at the wrong time, or maybe they're involved in their own race. And this is also a very narrow track, and that could definitely screw you up if you encounter the lap traffic at the wrong time.
Looks to me like maybe Doug Evans encountered at the wrong time, because he's suddenly got Thomas Sink and Elliott White right on top of him. You see them here on screen. That is Evans in the purple, white, and black machine. Pink, magenta, whatever you want to call it. Ooh, bad exit for the 48. Sink up on the high side, does not cover the inside, but still manages to chop in front of Elliott White.
Yeah, it looks like he had a bad run off the turn too. Elliott White tried to capitalize, but the door was shut right in his face.
So now we really are getting into a decently long green flag run. You mentioned the tires tend to get chewed up here. Is this a case, though, because it's such a short lap around here, Chris, where you still try and go as long as possible, or is it worth the undercut?
I think there will be a point where the undercut becomes worth it. I mean, you can see the differential in time from where they were at the start. So I think if it stays green, we will definitely reach a point where the undercut's going to be more powerful. Right now, I don't know if it's worth it at this point in the race.
Especially with the danger of that yellow looming over everybody. Yeah, Nick Schwartz, I think, a great example of that undercut being pretty powerful. I was looking at those lap times, and they started on 23s, high 23s, and now drivers are doing high 24s, so a second quicker and just about 20 laps of green flag racing.
What's interesting to me is Schwartz's tires are, what, 15 laps newer than everybody else? And he's running comparable lap times to everyone around him at this point.
Oh, remember, we did see some damage on the truck, so we think maybe...
Oh, true.
Yeah, he's suffering from that. So I'm guessing that it's more an issue related to that and not necessarily the problem with the tires themselves. He's still in 15th, still a gain from what he had at the start of this race and at those pit stops. So it's still working out, but he's not fighting this all. In fact, you can see him riding the high line quite frequently, letting other trucks through.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what the extent of the damage was that he's just kind of laying over and just letting everybody by at this point. But you can see it, especially how he drove off the corner there. That is not a happy handling truck.
This is not what you want at a track that is this quick, as we once again take a look at Evans. Sink being chased with White just behind them in the number 27. Currently on board with Thomas Sink in the 48. Riding just a little bit lower than that Miracle Flow car. Tucked down to the bottom line. Ooh, both of them drifting up a little bit on the entry into 3, cutting it down off of 4, trying to diamond it off, but it's not offering them any of them a passing attempt quite yet. And I'm getting word that Mark Kalin will be pitting.
Well, I feel like that's going to probably start an avalanche of pit stops here in the next few laps.
See if he can get in clean. This is a tricky one to get slowed up for. He locked him up a little bit. I think he should be okay, though. So he's the first to blink. And will he be able to use this to try and get some back, or will a caution nullify everything for him and trap him a lap down, maybe even 2 laps down? Nobody else joining yet. Everybody stays out.
You know, you bring up a great point with that pit road here as well, Joe. Something we didn't touch on yet today is that this is a really tricky transition. You have to drop off of that banking and make it around to a pretty early pit wall there around the corner. So it's caught some of the top-level NASCAR drivers out before, and I can tell you it's bit me before in the past as well. So a very tricky pit road here at Dover.
And Kalin's in for a long stop, so something must be wrong, unless he's suffering a penalty here and actually did speed. A few more down on the lane. Austin Hunter joins. Looks like Adam Shane is now down. Richard Regan Jr., our leader, is in. So if he's out, I think he did get a penalty for speeding, because that looks like about the time that the drivers would have to sit and wait for that to tick down. So we won't really know how that's going to affect the others. Bradley Hawley is now in. Josh Conker follows. Thomas Sink. It's all starting to domino.
I figured once the first truck blinked, it would be everyone following soon after. Looks like Abner out there waiting a little bit. This has been a pretty typical strategy for him in these races. He's one of the last drivers that comes down pit road, it seems like.
Well, he always seems to be much quicker on the earlier in the stint, like I mentioned before. So I wonder if this is him maybe trying to keep it on the fresh tires late to give him the best advantage possible. So who have we got that is back out and rolling of those who have pitted? I see Bradley Hawley returning to the track, but Regan's going to beat him. So Regan is now our highest pitter, unless you count Nick Schwartz, who's still running in 5th place, hasn't pitted yet. Waiting to see where Acosta is going to come out in relation to those leaders. Looks like he's now taking off. But Regan is easily by. And Hawley.
Yeah, Regan had a really solid pit stop. And did not waste too much time there. It's worked out in his favor, although Bradley Hawley is not very far behind at this point.
Charles Sumner is in. Jose Medina is going to continue on. Elliott White still out. Cervantes still moving. Colton Lane. In fact, Lane looks like he's coming in. Yes, Lane is pitting from 3rd. So now we've got Richard Regan promoted up to 8th here. Now that Sumner is in. Still waiting on a small handful. And they are still in danger of being trapped a lap down, because all those who have stayed out are still a lap ahead.
Yeah, I was just looking at our running order and thinking, boy, a caution right now could sure throw a monkey wrench in things.
And with everybody on different age tires, that makes it all the more likely, too. The 27 of Elliott White, our current leader, is now pitting. Cervantes is way back 9 seconds behind. Does he elect to stay out? Yes, he does. So Cervantes is going to continue on. At this point, it's now White, Schwartz, Adams, and Geyer that need to take stops in this cycle, but Schwartz is still on the youngest tires of those out there. 47 laps versus 60 for all those around him.
Let's see. Looks like
Cervantes stays out another lap. Regan's up to 5th. And he gapped Bradley Hawley pretty well. It's about 9/10 of a second between the pair of them. So Bradley's going to have some ground to try and make up. And on top of things, he's got lap trucks between himself and his rival. Cervantes finally pits.
Yeah, you can see a lot of trucks making it back onto the lead lap, and I think we'll finally see this pit cycle sort itself out here a little bit. Probably some nervous moments for your top runners there as we got later on into this pit cycle.
Absolutely. But it looks like most of the leaders have gone back to the lead lap. Oh my goodness, our leader right now, Brett Adams, is falling like a rock as he's still holding on dearly to this set of tires. He has not been he has not been in at all, I should say. These are the same tires that he started the race on, so 64 laps on these things, and you can see him at times really having to concentrate.
And you can see a good amount of damage there on the left front as well.
Yeah, so he got involved in something earlier on. Richard Regan Jr. just moved into 2nd, and in fact is catching Adams very quickly, so he's going to retake the lead regardless of whether Adams stops or not. Just saw Nick Schwartz come in. And is Adams finally pitting? Yes, he is.
Yeah, you figure at that point it's probably time to give it up.
Geyer joins him. That is going to, having taken there. Conker is still in 4th, and Acosta is in 5th, but they are much farther spread apart than before. The best battle right now is between Knight and Conker, split by less than 0.2 of a second.
It's like Colton Lane still rocking the Mark Martin throwback scheme this week.
A few of the drivers, I think, still have those lined up. They enjoyed them so much. Here we see Bradley Hawley in the 184, and now he's making this the best battle for the lead. He has cut down a 1 second gap to less now as more trucks return to the track. We once again watch to see how each one reacts to the situation. Ooh, and things very tight down into 3. It amazes me how cool. Whoa, and there's the reaction from Hawley. I was going to say, he didn't flinch at all as that was happening, but afterwards he seemed to get a raise of the eyebrows.
I think that's the most emotion Bradley's shown on camera yet.
Well, now he knows what he's up against. Regan's not going to roll over and let him have the win. He wants to continue this reign of terror that he's been giving as a non-championship driver.
Yeah, Regan has nothing to lose here. He's not looking to collect a good points day. He doesn't want, a nice, good top 5 finish. He is here for wins, and keep that in mind. He is here for wins and nothing else. So he's going to defend that spot. Pretty difficult, or pretty tough, I should say. But Hawley is a top contender here. He's got a championship on his mind, and he wants those points as well.
And Hawley is used to winning, that's for sure. He's only got a single one so far this season. As he continues to close back in what he lost from that failed attempt at the lead. This time he doesn't stick his nose down into turn 3. As he's trying to set him up. Is he doing this a little bit differently now?
Well, Bradley, one of the more deliberate drivers we have in this series. He's not going to make a move unless he thinks there's a pretty good chance of him completing the pass. So he's going to wait this one out probably and stalk the 46 here for a few laps and see what he's going to do.
Just sitting in right behind that tailgate. They've also got Colton Lane behind them, but he's a lap down, so that's not for position. That is also a lap truck in front of them. Mark Kalin, not even in a battle with Colton Lane either, so they don't have to worry about those two tangling with each other around them. Hopefully, Kalin is able to let them by without any sort of drama. We're also easily past halfway and only 1 caution so far.
That's a small wonder here at Dover. This is a track where I think we've seen a couple races go to time limit before in the past. So cool to see these guys keeping it clean today.
Certainly. And the top 2 also are putting more of a gap on Daniel Knight with each lap. It's 5.8 seconds between P2 and P3. So not only are they challenging each other, but Hawley and Regan have been stretching away. It looks like the lap traffic is not playing nice with Hawley, though, as he loses a little bit of ground. Colton Lane now splitting them. In fact, that would be Colton Lane going by Hawley. I think he's on fresher tires, so he's basically trying to get himself back on the lead lap.
Yeah, and we've reached the point where it's basically a conveyor belt effect here, where there's cars just about all the way around, and that's going to make it even tougher for our lead trucks, as it has been for Hawley. Definitely not having an easy go of it. He's dropped back to almost a second behind Richard Regan.
Yeah, between himself and Hawley. We also saw Lane just take a spot from Austin Hunter. That was 4th position. He's still a lap down. He's got to pass Regan if he wants to get back on the lead lap. And at this stage, he is the lucky dog if we do get a caution, but I'm sure he'd like to make doubly sure that he can get back up with the lead pack if we do get more yellow laundry. The other thing I wonder about, too, is will it be worth it to maybe try and take another pit stop if we stay green? I mean, do you try and hang it out here, Chris?
I think the strategy we'll see here today is I think these drivers are going to try to wait it out if there isn't another caution. I think they're going to probably try to run toward the end, or at least as far as they can. I mean, you can see our lead trucks are definitely having to work for it, so they may be using up the tires more than they want to, but I think their goal right now is going to be to not have to stop.
Well, since Hawley's now falling back, let's check in on this fight between Conker and Knight. We're on board with Daniel. Looking at Josh Conker, second in the championship right now, but losing points to Hawley critically.
That's a fair point. Conker, I mean, for him, it's been a pretty uneventful day running back towards the back half of the top 5. And really probably had a sense that he was going to be a little more involved in the battle today based on qualifying and practice. But Conker's still running a pretty quiet, consistent race, and it'll be a solid points day for him, it looks like. But you got to think he really wants to start contending for the victories.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, if anything, he's also one who would really appreciate a caution right now, as that would close the gap up to the likes of Bradley Hawley and Richard Regan Jr. I saw one more truck head in. I think that might have been Kulhanek a couple laps ago. Not sure if that was due to some damage or if he is trying to do some sort of alternate strategy here. He's definitely well down the order, unfortunately. In fact, he ducks into pit lane again, so there must be some kind of damage on that 89, as he's now visited for what I think is the 4th time.
Yeah, this is definitely evolving into a much different race than I think we expected heading into this one, Joe.
Absolutely. We thought that we'd get a few more cautions than what we've seen so far. An early one on lap 13, and since then it has been mean and green. But Richard Regan Jr. has been controlling it, especially since the pit stops. He had a slight challenge from Bradley Hawley. Hawley falls back to about 2.5 seconds. Is he actually out of pace, or is he maybe trying to save his tires in case we do get a caution? Hard to tell what's going on with that 184, because usually he's got pretty good legs underneath him.
Yeah, usually when he's trying to save tires, he at least will keep touch with the leader, but
yeah,
I mean, he's dropped off quite a ways.
The other thing this green flag racing has done is made very few trucks on the lead lap. Colton Lane is right now the last one that holds that in 12th. Everybody beyond that is either one or more laps down, or in the case of Patrick Cowgill, a DNF for today. Zemke is the last running, many laps down after being involved in the incident with Cowgill. He took a long bit of repairs and is just running in 25th, hoping to get himself some points.
You know, I was looking at the times. Colton Lane was one of the drivers that pitted a little bit later than the others, and was actually able to drive himself back onto the lead lap. His pace here is actually one of the fastest we have on the track right now, Joe.
Ooh, and he's even being held up a little by Mike Richter in front of him. That's for position. He's definitely got about 5 lap older fresher tires than Richter. And he's going to be able to easily get to his inside. So even after many laps of green, it looks like they are worth something late in the stint. Cervanta is going to follow him through. Richter gets demoted to 12th out of that. Richter now our last driver on the lead lap. Lane into 11th. And actually, it's got Jim Westerfield. There's another position. Can't quite get this one coming off the turn.
Yeah, could you imagine what a caution could do right now for somebody like Colton Lane that's running towards the tail end of the lead lap, but is really fast? I mean, to get him on the same strategy as everybody else and get him lined back up, he could be a threat to get a pretty solid top 10 finish.
Well, and he's aware of the differences in tires from those around him. He easily let Cervantes through, saw that he had been catching him, isn't interested in fighting since they're on different laps. Lane now into 10th after he disposed of Westerfield. And boy, he's got a long ways to go up to Charles Sumner, though. It's 7.5 seconds. And we are down to 20 laps to go as well. This time at the line for Richard Regan Jr. Bradley Hawley mysteriously struggling now, 3 seconds back from the 3-time winner.
Boy, the way this race is playing out is just so different than what I expected, Joe. I had a whole different framework in mind. It almost is playing out similar to like what you'd see on a road course race with all these different strategies going on at one time.
I just looked at Hawley and Knight's lap times. And Knight seems to be about a tenth of a second quicker than Holly, but he has one lap older tires than Holly, so this is very strange.
It feels almost like something must have happened to Holly. This is just so unusual for him, the way this is playing out.
Maybe he hit the wall when we weren't looking. Just a little bit of a touch that we didn't catch, and it's doing the same thing that we saw happen to Schwartz. By the way, after his last stops, he's down in 22nd, 4 laps down, sadly.
You know, it does look like the right side is scraped up, Joe. So maybe he had a little bit of a slapper out coming off of one of the corners.
So easy to do here. He's going to put a lap on the 23. No, excuse me, I was looking at Daniel Knight there. Knight is now down to 9/10 of a second behind Holly, though. He is gaining hand over fist. This is Conker and White that we're watching riding on board with Elliott. Josh Conker continuing to tail Daniel Knight, about the same distance back as what he was before, maybe a little farther behind that 17, but at least keeping him honest. $15 laps to go now.
We're down to just 9 truck lead lap.
Man, White is really riding Josh Conker. Ooh, and I'm not sure if Conker got loose or if that was an attempted block. Whatever the case, White tries to go down low. He's going to get his nose to the quarter panel. Now he's got to accelerate off, though. Both of them trying to hold on to it. More blinking, unfortunately, for Josh Conker, and that causes him to decide to give it up. White is into 4th.
Elliott White has a win this season, and
he got a caution.
Well, that's
Dan Geyer.
That's gonna change things up.
The 36. Oh, he got into problems with Mark Kalin on the front stretch. Let's take a look at this. I think Kalin's going to get a little loose, and unfortunately, Geyer is the victim of it. Ooh, that was a pretty big hit to the pit wall on the inside. Thankfully, everybody behind was very heads up as a green cone goes flying. Someone having to avoid and absolutely takes it out. I got to suspect everybody's ducking into pit lane now.
Oh, yeah. Definitely think if we're going to see everybody hit pit road here.
Colton Lane, though, stays out. But he was picked up by the pace truck. Now that's interesting. I don't think he was a lap behind. Did he get retaken over by Richard Regan Jr. there?
Yeah, it was showing him a lap down right before the caution hit.
Oh, so he must have lost a little pace and then got overtaken. Everybody looking for their pit stalls. Not seeing anybody having to back up quite yet. Who is going to be out quickest? Track position could be very important after these stops. It's going to go to Regan. Second, back to Holly. He doesn't lose anything. Knight manages to hold on to 4th, but barely. What will be 3rd, rather, as Colton Lane is going to come back around. And yeah, it was a very good stop for the 27. Nearly overtook Daniel Knight there on the pit exit. Conker back down to 6 on top of things with Lane slotting into position. But I think Lane got the lucky dog. I think we're going to see that 60 come down and take fresh tires. I highly doubt 40-lap old tires is really the good strategy call here.
Yeah, I would agree.
And all my vast wisdom of oval racing, I think I can call that one. And yeah, he's coming in.
Really interested in the 184's pace once we go back to green, Joe. Looks like he made some contact with the wall, but maybe a chance to get some of that damage worked on and get fresh tires underneath it. So we'll have a bit of a battle here in the closing laps.
Yeah, if he was able to get any of that damage repaired, if that helps him, that could make it a completely different race for Richard Regan Jr. because he basically had the run of the field there. Those last 20 or so laps just pulled away from Hawley and wasn't phased. Waiting for them to go double file here soon. We're going to have a number of trucks that are going to get back on the lead lap. Cervantes, Kalen, Hunter, Hilton, Brett Adams in there as well. Westerfield, Richter. We're going to restart with 8 laps to go, I think. 9 laps to go. No, 10. We're going to be... No, excuse me. It will be 9 laps to go if we get double file this time. So a very short sprint. We do get 1 green-white checkers. If the drivers have a caution too close to the finish, that it'll take us over the checkered flag. But they only get 1 attempt at it. Now a whole bunch of trucks start to get that lap back as the leaders have to catch up to the pace truck. Back to 13 on the lead lap. Everybody else a lap down or more.
So there's a lot at play here, a lot of drivers really hungry for a win, a lot of variables that could come into play here, Joe. I think these last 9-8 laps we have here are going to be really, really fun.
I think we're in for a spicy one because now is when everybody has to fight for those spots if they want the points. Bradley Hawley is ahead of Josh Conker. Does he fight Richard Regan Jr. when he's still going to gain over his rival? Pace truck is in, and Regan's off early. Oh, it's a bad start for Hawley. To his inside, it's Daniel Knight, who's already been able to get second place away. Is he going to finish the job into 1? Yes, he does.
With so few laps left, I think that restart went about as bad as possible for Hawley, and he looks like he may even give up another spot here to Elliott White.
Ooh, yeah, this is not good. So he must have some kind of damage. Wow, big checkup behind as Conker had to lift big time. Side by side, and Hawley's loose. Hawley is wrecking, and a caution is out. He gets hit and goes tumbling. Hawley is going to take a DNF. Another car gets into him. I think that is Jose Medina. Unbelievable. An uncharacteristic mistake from Bradley Hawley.
Yeah, you can see here he'll come off of turn 4. There's not really anybody too close to him, and he just loses the back end of it off of turn 4.
I'm really guessing that it was affecting the handling. Fresh tires were no good, apparently. We should be able to get to the end here. Should be able to get to the end under green if we restart here soon, which we will in about 3 or 4 laps. So interesting note, I'm seeing Nick Hunter was given an end of line penalty. Was that recent? I don't think I remember seeing that before.
I believe that was before the last restart, so it must have been something under the caution.
Have to try and dig into that. Wow, this changes everything. So Conker, who's second in the points, will restart from 5th, but he's got to worry about Elliott White. Remember, there was only 1 point separating them. Well, White starting in front of Conker. Where is Thomas Sink? Sink starting from 6th. So Hawley really is the main one in this group that has been taken out of contention. Doug Evans, don't forget as well. He's restarting in 7th, as he's 7th in the points. So there's 4 drivers right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers right there. Like you said, who are going to be hungry for a victory, hungry for as many points as possible. We got a few takers down pit lane who are going to gamble on some fresh tires.
And we're going to look back to this race as one that was pretty integral to the finish. No matter what happens, either we're going to see Bradley Hawley claw his way back from his bad finish here today, or somebody's going to make their championship off of the back of this race.
Now, Hawley's worst finish was round 1. That was the race at, let me check my stats here. It's taking its time. That was Bristol Dirt. So that kind of explains that as a bit of an outlier. Everything else for him, he's been pretty consistent. But this one might wind up having to be his drop week then, which means he'll only essentially, quote unquote, earn 4 points. And here's a few of our onboards. Well, that's brave, being able to, you really got to know where that water bottle is when you're trying to take a sip with a VR on.
I was noticing that when under pace laps at the start, and I thought maybe he was getting a little cocky with that water bottle, to be honest.
I would be so afraid of embarrassing myself and just hitting that thing and it falling to the floor. Now, thankfully, I think, did he put a lid back onto it, actually?
He did. That he did.
Oh, wow. Man, multi-talented Richard Regan Jr.
I can barely walk and chew bubble gum, and this guy's throwing bottles around with the VR headset on.
Okay, so challenge to Richard, if you're watching this later, let's see a bottle flip to put it back at some stage. As we wait for the drivers to go double file. Looks like we're going to restart with 3 to go, I believe. Are we going to actually make it back, though? Let me double check on the official time. I wouldn't think that we would be close to being out of time. Okay, looks like we're plenty good. We've got 8 minutes left, so we will definitely get to the end here. And double file they go. Three laps to decide it. Unless we get another caution in those first 2 laps, then it'll go to green-white checkers, which I think we should have enough time on the clock to actually get a full green-white checkers. If they do not survive that green-white checkers, that will end the race based on where the order is. We're down to very few trucks left, actually. Hunter, Hawley, Medina all had some issues that they're down the lane taking repairs. We've lost Schwartz, Geyer, and Cowgill, with Zemke and Kulhanek, as well as Nick Hunter, next left running. But the pace truck peels off, and Richard Regan Jr. has control. He goes immediately. He doesn't want to wait around, and just like last time, the second place driver is caught out. This time it's Knight getting a taste of his own medicine, and Acosta is thinking about second.
Well, you mentioned Acosta maybe having some trouble saving tires. Well, this will work out for him perfect with a nice short run here at the end. He is looking really fast now, just about 1 or 2 truck lengths between him and his teammate up front.
2 to go for Abner Acosta. He's got a gap to make up, though. 2/10 to try and catch Richard Regan Jr. and keep him from winning yet another race. Behind him, Daniel Knight looks like he doesn't want to sit still on this either. As you can see, a little side-by-side racing between Elliott and Sink. That's getting spicy. If they hold on, we will finish under green, though. Across the line, white flag is out. Acosta not close enough to try and challenge. We're going to finish under green, and Richard Regan Jr. has control of things. Daniel Knight still right over the tailgate of Abner Acosta, but hasn't put his nose in yet. Is he just going to try to take the points? Richard Regan, he's going to take the points, but they don't matter to him. The 46 wins yet again for the 4th race in a row of his attendance. Acosta with second. A whole lot of shuffling for spots there at the top, but I wonder if those drivers, Chris, thought to themselves, these are valuable points over Hawley. I gotta take them home.
Well, that and the 46 was just bad fast today.
Nobody was stopping Richard Regan Jr., even though we saw Hawley challenge him a few times and lead a few laps. But in the end, victory to Richard will be celebrated as we step away with a short break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. It was an unusual race here at the Monster Mile, but round 7 of the Precision Racing League NASCAR Truck Series saw Richard Regan Jr. win his 4th race, but he's only been here for 4 races. It is just an incredible bit of work by the 46 that he's shown. Abner Acosta followed him home in 2nd, with Daniel Knight finishing P3. Josh Conker gains plenty of points on his rival, finishing 4th today, with Elliott White rounding out the top 5. Thomas Sink in a lot of battles with Elliott there at the very end, claiming 6th, with Doug Evans in 7th. How about Charles Sumner? Didn't really get to give a lot of light to him, but he climbed from 18th to 8th. Colton Lane was 9th, and Jim Westerfield rounds out your top 10.
Just outside of the top 10, breaking even on the day is Baron Hilton in 11th, with Mike Richter 12th. Adam Shane was our last driver on the lead lap in lucky number 13, with Mark Kalin. First truck 1 lap down in 14th, Danny Cervantes 15th. Brett Adams led some laps at one point today in 16th, and Stacy Hunter, Nicholas Hunter, Bradley Holly after an accident, and Jose Medina completing the top 20.
A few DNFs scattered amongst some stragglers at the end that you see on your screen takes us, of course, to an interview with our winner, Richard Regan Jr. 4 out of 4, Richard. But I found it interesting, that battle at the start where you swapped back and forth with Bradley a little bit. It seemed like both of you wanted to lead. How important was that track position here today?
I mean, track position was pretty important, but saving the tires was definitely more important. I seen that him and Daniel Knight and Abner were pushing really hard at the start, and I wasn't trying to get my truck wrecked that early, so I just let Brad go. And then I was like, I don't really like the dirty air. And then he barely left the lane going into 1, and I took it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, you basically had control of the race, save for, the green flag stops that we saw. But how did you decide when was the time to come down? Were you reacting to those ahead, or did you have a pre-planned lap?
So our window was between 52 and 55. I wanted to wait until after Brad pit, but last week it didn't work that good for Abner in the Cup race. It seemed that even though the guy had the newer tires and was faster, it was still wicked hard to pass. I knew it would be hard to pass. So I wanted to get the track position and keep it. And so when I pit and I came out almost 4 seconds ahead of Brad, I just backed way down and saved a lot of tire. And I saved like 10% more tire that last long run than I did the first run. So I just had to hold Brad off until he burnt up his right front, and then he ended up getting tight off of 4 and popped the wall, and that was it.
This one's going to sound a little silly, but we caught you taking drinks while with your VR headset on and even screwing the bottle back on. You're not afraid of knocking that thing off and losing track of it?
I mean, I've had my VR for like 4 years now, so I mean, I'm pretty good with this water bottle. So.
Well, it certainly caught our attention. It was a bit of a fun moment for us here in the booth. Congratulations on yet another win, and hopefully we'll get to see you next week as well.
Yeah, before I go, I'd like to give a shout out Private Label for coming on board this year. Ethica, Neonism Paints, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Susan G. Coleman, Oculus Glasses, my spotter tonight, Sheldon Adkins, Brandon Walter, Josh Conker, Tommy Milner, Ty Stover, James O'Brien, everyone that tunes in and everyone that makes the team go.
Great stuff from Richard Regan Jr., winner here tonight. And that takes us over to Abner Acosta. Chris has caught up with him.
Well, Abner, great run today. Looked like you might have had a shot at it once you got around the 17th there on that last caution. Tell us about your closing laps.
They were really good late laps for me. I definitely don't think I was fast enough. I was running like around 6 at the time before the pit stops, and I guess I was just at the right place at the right time. I was able to get on the outside by some people and take second at the end. But I honestly, I was not fast at all here. I guess I don't understand the track, so I'm really happy to get second.
Now, you stayed out a lot later than most of the trucks running around you during that round of green flag pit stops. What kind of went into your decision to stay out?
Well, I figured I was already slow. And I just wanted to pit late to see maybe I could get a little bit of an advantage. but not even doing that, that didn't even help me out at all. I was still just as fast as everybody else. I just didn't have the speed this week. And with that, again, luckily with that last yellow flag there, I was able to just get past some people at the end there.
All right, we head to Circuit of the Americas next week. What are your thoughts on that course in the truck?
I have quite a bit of. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't think. I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. I know that now in the trucks we have a lot of road people. Like I know Elliot White has really high rating. I think he has like 7K, and I think there's. I think it's Daniel Ferguson. I think he's like 7K too in road. So we'll see how they do. And I know Bradley. He's good in road, and Richard. So. I know I'll definitely be strong, and I'll definitely put laps, and that's I like road, so hopefully I can get a W there.
All right, Abner. Anybody you want to thank that helped make today possible for you?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody on the team, Hype, Private Label, Richard, Josh on the race today. They did really well. Ty, Tommy Milner. Just everybody that helps every week, spotting and with everything else, and you guys for broadcasting and PRL for hosting the league.
All right, that's our second place finisher today, Abner Acosta. Back to you, Joe.
That's going to take us to third place finisher Daniel Knight here today. Started on the front row, though, but was still up in the hunt for much of it. Daniel, we saw a number of drivers mysteriously fall backwards after what we think was a damage-induced lack of pace. Did you do anything special today to make a cognizant effort to stay away from the walls?
Well, I just tried to keep the impacts to the walls at a minimum if I could. Yeah, that's the big thing with this track is if you middle of the way through a run or towards the end of a run, if you start pushing that exit, you're going to smack the wall. So I've done that enough and tried to learn from my past mistakes there and just be patient on the throttle through the center and not hit it coming out.
Really looked like it paid off. Speaking of watching out for things, lap traffic during the pit stop sequence under green flag looked like an absolute nightmare. Describe to us what it was like having to deal with so many trucks on different age tires.
There's a lot of trust involved. That's probably one of the best things about running a league with guys regularly is you can trust that they know you're there and then they're not going to come down on you. So, but a lot of it was just. I knew Josh was right behind me and was closing in fast, and I couldn't really afford to give up time, being patient, getting past lap guys. So I just kind of had to send it and hope that they saw me coming.
Now, to the left of you, I see some patches and some special items. Anything up there that is worth a story?
Oh, there's probably a story for every one of these. I mean, I was active duty Air Force for 6 years, and I've been in the Air National Guard for 5 years now. So, got plenty of stories.
Oh, well,
maybe none that are good enough for YouTube or appropriate.
That's understandable. We'll have to chat about those later privately then. But regardless, congratulations on a podium, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you at COTA.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that was our third place finisher, Daniel Knight. As we are going to, of course, wrap up with some big thank yous to our sponsors, starting with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net. And, of course, NinjaTrader. Get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, Butt Kicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Chris, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC, because the next race is a road course in the truck, Circuit of the Americas, Wednesday, May 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar.